And now Mike Butcher will be hosting a Fireside about investing with Paul Bragiel, managing partner at IO Ventures. Please welcome Mike and Paul.
Hey everybody, how you guys doing?
Hello. Thanks very much for joining us, Paul Lee. Just in case people are not aware of the kinds of things you've done before, I was looking at your career to date, and I think one of the things that struck me was that you're quite unusual for a Silicon Valley investor in that you're interested in the rest of the world, which is not very Silicon Valley. Most of the time, the Silicon Valley guys, you've got to come and move over here.
Yes, yeah.
Why do you think? I met a VC in SF once, and I said, "So, would you ever invest in companies, say in London or something?" And he said, "Well, I've got a company in Berkeley, but that's 30 miles away." Yeah. Why do they have that attitude?
Yeah, I'll talk to why they do it and why I don't. At the end of the day, the reason VCs don't want to go do it in Silicon Valley is because, yeah, they're not comfortable, right? They have so many deals coming through. If you sit there in the Valley, people come to you from all around the world, right? And so you see so many interesting things. You're like, why would I move my ass anywhere, right? If I'm in the Valley, I get so many meeting requests, some people coming to me, that it's almost overwhelming, right? So if you want to just stay in focus there, it's very easy, and you're going to see everything. And what's also really cool about Silicon Valley is not only you can see the best US deals, you actually see a lot of international deals coming through because, everyone flows through there. It's kind of like you make a pilgrimage there. So yeah, a lot of the US investors don't feel the need to do that. So that's why I'd say most of them actually never leave the Valley. So
anyway, looking at your career to date, now you have been doing things since like the late 90s, early 2000s. You're involved in some of the earliest startups and the creator, in fact, of some of the earliest mobile startups like Metro, which came out at the same time as Dodgeball, for instance. You obviously felt you were a little bit early with that idea.
No, that's a problem with tech startups. You never know if you're too early, right? I saw trends coming at the time that I thought kind of would overlap, and I thought for sure that, yeah, you kind of combined social networking with local, with mobile, that 2004 would have been the right time. Little did I know the company I created didn't start becoming really possible until now. And I see it now in a company called Tinder, and you're like, wow, I was 10 years too early, right? And then also you could be too late sometimes, right? So the key thing is, though, keep on trying, keep on putting out there, and hopefully raise enough money where you go out there and build enough runway, I guess you would say. But yeah, to have had a 10-year runway, that would have been impossible, right? But yeah, so sometimes you do end up failing because you time things improperly. But you also learn a lot, and actually a lot of really amazing things came out of that as well, too. But you don't know that also in the beginning. You have to kind of connect those dots going backwards of sorts.
But there's a sort of irony here, isn't there? Because, for instance, I meet companies, say, in the Middle East, who are doing things that I saw a few years ago, but actually, in this market, they can get traction because they're relatively new ideas still.
Actually, that's one thing that's really cool about emerging markets and places that are, aren't the Silicon Valley. You could go out there and you could take business models that worked in other parts of the world and actually, I'd say localize them or tropicalize them, as we call that. So it's almost de-risking a lot of the investments. A lot of people actually get kind of mad about the copycats and all the people kind of cloning businesses. While I hate when people doing it 100% cloning of a company, I think actually there are opportunities for entrepreneurs in these regions to go out there and learn a lot by copying a business. And maybe that first business will be a clone, it won't be so big, but what gets me excited is that it's starting more people becoming entrepreneurs, and some of those people might go on and start a second or third company, and they'll be way more better of an entrepreneur. So I actually think that's actually a very good development for emerging markets to go out there and have people start companies. In general, the more companies being created, that means also more failures, but also more successes. That's better for a whole region. So I just encourage people to just start doing stuff. But
just do anything.
Just get going.
Get going.
When I started my first companies, I had no idea what I was doing. You just make up shit. Everyone's making up shit the whole way. You're just figuring it out, but then you look back at 5 years from now, you're like, oh my God, now I'm the expert in my field because you went out there and you kind of learned by bumps and bruises. It's kind of like when you're walking as a kid. You don't just magically start walking. You have to fall on your face 100 times. It's the same thing with running companies and becoming a good entrepreneur. You have to kind of get, I guess, beaten up along the way to really become one that's good.
Nobody comes out perfectly every time.
I have not seen that. If it happens, then maybe it's some, who knows, God reincarnate. I don't know.
the atmosphere in Silicon Valley right now is very bubblish. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I mean, things are definitely very hypey right now. But what's difference between now and then, in the past is that there's actually really great numbers behind these companies. I mean, I see some of the growth, and I'm sitting there like, holy shit, these companies are really growing properly. There's actually revenue coming in. It's not just eyeballs or some kind of fake metric. There's actually people going out there and actually making money. So it is getting hypish. The valuations may be a little bit higher than they should be, but I think it's justified like 80%, 90% of the way.
Do you think that's why people are looking outside the valley now because of you can't buy a house, rent an apartment unless it's in San Francisco anymore, unless it's for less than an enormous amount of money. So is it that craziness, is that forcing people to look outside?
I think it's one of the factors. Of course, people are like, hey, it's very competitive here, and if you're like Sequoia, Benchmark, etc., you'll get all the best deals, but maybe if you're like a lower tier VC, it might be a little bit harder. But there's also a couple other things. I mean, we're seeing in all the regions around the world, be it Asia, be it Africa, be it South America, the amount of like mobile penetration, the amount of users that are coming online, the amount of new payment systems coming in. These things didn't exist 5 years ago, but nowadays they're being slowly developed more and more. So there's opportunities to go out there and build really huge businesses, right? I mean, you go and market like Brazil or Indonesia, and there's hundreds of millions of people that have never actually had anything sold to them ever. You could go out there and be the first point of contact. So there's a lot of really huge opportunities. And in the next 5 years, there's going to be people that are going to go out there like become those regional players, right? And it's kind of a greenfield new approach, right? And I think that's a really exciting time. And that's why I'm jumping on a plane all the time, because I want to go out there and be part of those big companies and own a small piece of them, hopefully. So yeah.
I would assume that that it's the mobile phone that's driving all of this growth, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely that, right? I mean, so first it was, just regular phones, people kind of getting on. But yeah, like the smartphones have come down so much in price. Like in Africa, you go out there and buy a phone, it's $100 smartphone nowadays, right? From a company called Techno, right? Like it's amazing and it just keeps on getting lower, right? So yeah, it's amazing the penetration of these devices, and that really changes how people go out there and think, and the type of products that can be built, and also what kind of investments you could do on top of that.
I mean, give us, a lot of people here would be quite interested to hear your view on how collegiate this investing is in the US. I mean, for instance, you might, do you ever kind of have coffee with Dave McClure from 500 Startups, or?
I never do it in San Francisco, but we bump into each other in random cities all around the world.
You see him in other cities?
Yeah, of course, that's kind of how it is. Yeah, me and him are never at home, so yeah.
Is everyone in San Francisco a big friend of each other, or are you constantly competing?
So it depends on what level. If you're in a seed level, kind of like writing angel investor, 25 to a couple 100,000 checks, everyone hangs out because you actually syndicate all the deals, and you're like, hey, I'm gonna do this, what do you think this, hey, could you jump in, that type of happens. But once you start writing $3, $5, $10 million checks, it's a winner take all type of thing, right? So you are friendlies or kind of like frenemies, you're like, but people definitely have bitterness, and sometimes people are on the boards together that hate each other. I mean, that does happen, right? But on a lower level, it's super buddy, and people are super plugged in, and everyone knows everybody, right? Especially at the cream of the crop. So
I mean, as an observer of ecosystems around the world yourself, you would therefore say that at the early stage, people are syndicating deals amongst each other and gradually sort of bubbling everyone up through the pipeline.
Well, I mean, the U.S. is really good at that. I think that's actually a problem with a lot of the emerging markets, that people are even fighting at the lowest of levels. Like, they're fighting over being the king of a small pond. They're like, I want to become the coolest guy in this region. It's like, dude, there's nothing here. You guys should grow it together and grow the pie, right? So sometimes you see kind of bickering and bitterness at levels that shouldn't be happening, right? And
over tiny amounts of money.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So, and that actually makes me sad. Are people like being way too protective and kind of almost like cutting people off the kneecaps in these regions? Like, I don't know why they're doing that. They should be helping each other out, because it's so nascent and beginning in these regions that, yeah, they need all hands on deck. And I'm seeing some countries do an amazing job with that. We were just in Finland, right? Helsinki, like, everybody there helps each other out, right? But there's other countries, and yeah, you see people just kind of totally fighting, and you're like, why are they doing this? So yeah.
What's the opportunity, do you think, for a company to go global from someone like Lebanon? There's quite a successful app out of here called Poo, which has done like 100,000 downloads already or something like that, and it's actually doing okay, but nobody actually knows it's from Lebanon. No big deal. How do you take a company that's doing very well, and would you just like parachute them into the valley, or what would you do with that?
Yeah, so actually, some of our strategy with some of our investments is to bring them to the valley, some that we decide to keep out there. So it really depends on what kind of company you're building. If you're a company that's like 100% app or like a video game, you don't need to be anywhere in the world. You go out there, you put it in the App Store, you put it on Google Play, and you have instant distribution, right? So you don't have to actually have people on the ground. But there's certain companies, you have to go out there and you have to start kind of building networks into the US, you have to go out there and do marketing in the United States. And yeah, when we see a company like that in our portfolio, we will actually help them come out to the United States, be it raising money from the United States, kind of holding their hands to all the various VCs, or even help them start their first office, help them hire the first biz dev guy, a sales guy, stuff like that. But it really depends on the market. I'd say it also depends on if the company's being built for that region. So we do a lot of investments in, let's say, marketplaces in Southeast Asia. It'd be really stupid to bring them to the United States because their whole business is to sell to the Southeast Asian market, right? So it's a one-by-one basis, but when we see the opportunity, we definitely try to bring them to the United States as soon as possible, way earlier than even you would think, because then their brain starts thinking differently, and they start having different goals as well, too.
You like being a bit of an adventurer, don't you? You've famously became a Colombian citizen recently in order to compete in the Moscow, the Sochi Winter Olympics. That's a bit crazy, by the way, isn't it?
Yes, it is, but that's what actually entrepreneurs are all a little bit crazy.
What happened? Why didn't all your portfolio companies get annoyed with you that you disappeared off the planet for a few months to train and become an Olympian?
Yeah, I mean, so luckily in all my regions I have really great partners, and they kind of understood that this is something that I wanted to pursue. But also, we did have rules set. Companies could, I would still engage with companies, but I only would engage with them when it was actually really big, kind of critical key company events. So the company's being acquired, they're raising a big round of financing, I would still engage. But I wasn't going to be doing as much day-to-day stuff. But ever since then, now I've been kind of really catching up and kind of overcompensating to try to make up for my time lost of sorts.
Right. But that experience, that sort of, you've got an adventurer bent about you. You want to, you travel across Russia, the Siberian wastelands. I mean, does that inform what you do as an entrepreneur and as an investor, or is it just something you just do for fun?
No, I mean, it's risk-taking, right? Being an entrepreneur is an adventure, right? You go out there and you see some crazy goal. Like, I want to go out there and run the biggest company in, I don't know, let's say logistics or microphones or something like that, right? And you see this shiny object. It's kind of like an adventurer sees, hey, I want to go out there and climb to Mount Everest, right? Or I want to go out there and accomplish this goal. And along the way, you learn a lot of things. And whenever I do these projects, I usually don't know what I'm doing in the beginning, and I kind of, go out there, educate myself, and start practicing along the way, right? And training yourself, right? So I see being an entrepreneur the same thing as being an adventurer. You're going to take a lot of risks. You have a big goal, and then hopefully at the end you accomplish it. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you don't, but the key thing is also attempting along the way. The amount of things you learn, the amount of experiences you have are just so informative, for your, I guess, personal being, I guess.
You've got a couple of funds operating right now. So you're based in San Francisco. You have the Savannah Fund, which invests principally sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah, English-speaking Africa, pretty much.
English-speaking Africa in Nairobi.
Yes.
You have the Golden Gate Ventures, which covers Asia.
Correct.
And you have IO, which is in SF, and that invested, well, I suppose probably one of the most famous investments is Uber.
Yes.
Who were obviously helping us out while we're here. And Game Founders, and a kind of an
yes,
accelerator
correct.
aimed at games. I noticed the lack of a Middle East fund. Is that why you're here? You're going to launch something here?
I mean, I'm open to ideas. I mean, when I start these vehicles, it's more opportunistic, not necessarily like I've got a game plan. It's like I find somebody that I really trust on the ground, right? So my model is usually I look to find one local partner, like an actual partner in the fund that will be on the ground all the time. And then also I try to bring somebody with Silicon Valley experience and make them move into that region. So yeah, I'm here. I'm looking to meet new people. If there's somebody that wants to start a fund together, who knows? Maybe we start one together. I don't know. In general, I want to go out there and just put as many smart people on the ground and actually help as many entrepreneurs start companies. My goal is to have thousands of entrepreneurs bloom, right? I think it's an amazing journey, and I want as many people to kind of share that experience with me. So yeah, if that means starting a fund in the Middle East, it's definitely something I'd like to do, yeah.
Is there any synergy between these different operations?
Yeah, actually all the partners know each other. I throw retreats. We kind of, actually have people talk to each other. A lot of the guys actually do know each other. So, yeah, I think there is a good amount. I mean, in terms of actual like companies, not as much yet. But also there's learnings. We're learning some regions that are actually applying to other ones. Like, for instance, in Africa, we're doing a lot of stuff in kind of mobile payments. That's being, kind of applied in other regions as well, too. So, yeah, I'm seeing some. But I think in time, there'll be a lot more.
You've obviously haven't been here long, so I'm not going to ask you about your expertise about the Beirut market or the internet here, because you're here to fact find and learn about it as much as possible yourself. What are kinds of things that you look for when you look at an ecosystem or entrepreneurs generally? What are the kind of key things that you look for?
Yeah, on an ecosystem level, and I mean, I do work with a lot of governments and this type of stuff. Like, I'm looking for a couple things. One, obviously, I want to find people at the highest level are excited, right? Because you do need to have some people, able to open doors, right? And when I say excited, not even financially excited, but like willing to go out there and usher young people in and willing to kind of go over and extend a hand. I've seen some countries that ask for this help, but it's more for political reasons. They just want to kind of inflate their egos and not really doing it because they care. So I want to see people who actually care at the top, right? And that does mean the presidential level all the way down, right? But then more importantly, I want to see like a really cool grassroots level, right? I want to see actually the young entrepreneurs, they're actually going out there throwing events. They're actually meeting up with each other. They're actually sharing ideas instead of being all protective and stuff. If I start seeing nuggets of that, and like, it doesn't even take many of them, but there's a few of them, then actually it could be a really good sign, because it doesn't take much to actually start a good ecosystem. A lot of these things are started by 3 to 5 people, and then it snowballs, right? But it just takes a couple like super hardcore, like almost maniacal ringleaders on that grassroots level to kind of really get things going. And once you see that, then yeah, and then obviously here, I mean, this conference came together because there were a few maniacally awesome people, right? And so that's a very good sign, in my opinion.
How much do you think entrepreneurs themselves should be involved? Or should they leave all the events and the organizing up to other people?
Well, actually, I think some of the best events are run by entrepreneurs, right? We obviously need people that are kind of the organizer kind of conference types, but also some of the entrepreneurs that put together events are the most powerful ones. So I actually, when I was an entrepreneur, I would throw a lot of dinners, right? And I would invite anybody else besides other entrepreneurs. And we kind of would have these events, maybe 15, 20 people, but they were really great because you could share the most feelings. Being an entrepreneur is a hard journey, right? And so I kind of say there's Alcoholics Anonymous, there's Entrepreneur Anonymous. We'd get together, we'd cry, or we'd celebrate each other's victories. But having those kind of small events is really important too. So yeah, you need all types of people throwing different types of events, different types of gatherings, and kind of sharing knowledge with each other.
What's kind of piquing your interest at the moment? What are you super excited about, either in a particular company or a sector or a region, or what sort of gets you going? Apart from cross-country skiing.
Apart from skiing, yes. So, I mean, obviously, I do love emerging markets, right? And that's obviously, we already covered that. But in terms of like new industries or kind of things popping up, I'm super into kind of quadcopter drones. I think that's gonna be really cool. I just made an investment in one company there, and I think that's gonna be a lot more interesting stuff happening in that space.
That you like drones?
Why do I like drones?
Yeah, why do you like drones?
I'm a nerd. I want to play with them, right? But the thing is, the reason I say that's important is because, one, all my smartest friends are playing with them, right? And actually, a lot of things that start out as toys end up becoming not toys, right? The internet, to a lot of people, was a toy, right? Computers was a toy, right? I see these things that are toys, they kind of go out and evolve into really, really big things. And actually, a lot of investors, they look at things like, oh, it's almost too late. If you are looking at something, it's already kind of developed, you might have missed the biggest companies in that space. So, yeah, I get really excited about it because people are playing with it, and it's really brilliant people. Like, my most nerdiest, awesome friends are really geeking out about them. Like, oh, shit, I better pay attention. So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying.
Do you think groceries delivered by drones or the other things?
I mean, everything from that to, like, I saw a startup recently that's doing, oil pipe maintenance, right? To going out there and border security between U.S. and Mexico. Weird stuff like this. Like, it's not only like, but then also I just put one to a company, it's called AirDog. It's like for extreme sports. You put a device and it follows you. Actually, you're doing like spline curves to make sure to film you. So you mount a GoPro camera on that, you could do amazing videos that are completely automated, right? So like, there's a whole slew of things from entertainment to, yeah, really hardcore, very specific industry stuff. So yeah, it's exciting, it's cool. So
anything else exciting at the moment?
Let's see what else. Obviously, I'm still kind of really big into cryptocurrencies. I think that there'll be a progressive country out there that like adopts it, and that will really change things. But in general, just fintech is being kind of reformed. Like, people really trusted the financial system until 2008. And ever since then, now people are like, whoa, something's broken here. Maybe there's a chance for me to go out there and build a business. So in all these emerging markets, I'm seeing huge companies that are going to be started in fintech. You know, like the future of banking, the future of payments is being done right now. And I'm sure there'll be a big startup that comes out of the Middle East as well, too.
So finally, which nationality are you going to take on next? You've got Colombian citizenship, Polish citizenship, US citizenship. What are the chances of getting a Lebanese citizenship?
I don't know. What are the rules to become a Lebanese citizen? I'm all for it, right? So, yeah.
You heard it here first. He's joining the club. Thanks very much, Paul.
Thank you.
Excellent.